What's up, developers? This is going to be a tutorial series on how to make a bar chart with D3, React, and TypeScript. In order for you to follow along, you need to be familiar with React hooks and TypeScript. You don't have to be familiar with D3, and this could very well act as your introductory course into D3. It's not going to be too comprehensive, as the purpose is just to get up and running with bar chart and to learn how to tie these technologies together. By the end of this course, you'll have learned how to build a bar chart like this. Okay, and the related GitHub repo will be linked in the video description if you'd like to follow along with that. So let's just dive right in. First off, I created a TypeScript create React app application, and I've just gutted the app file. Okay. First things first, you will want to add the library, and the library is D3 selection, and you'll want to add the corresponding types as well. So D3 selection. Okay, I already have this installed, but you can go ahead and do that, and you can use whatever package manager you like. Okay, and before I start explaining D3, let's go ahead and write some code. So I'm going to render an SVG. I'm also going to bring in a ref. Let's say SVG ref is better, and use ref. I'm going to set it to null. I'm going to assign the SVG with the ref. And we are going to make this a type of SVG element or null. And if you're ever unsure what the type of the element is, you can hover over the element and it will tell you. In this case, it's a SVG element. Or if we hover over div, it can tell us that it's an HTML div element. Okay, let's go ahead and import select from D3. And let's bring in a use effect so we can console log something. So .current of the ref just gives us the reference to the node, or give us the reference to the element, and select is a wrapper around that element that gives us properties and some methods that we can use to modify the DOM element. So let's go ahead and run this. And as we can see, the console provides us with the selection object, and it gives us the SVG elements right here. By default, the SVG element is 300 by 150 dimensions. And it also provides, selection object also provides us with a lot of methods that we can use to help us modify the DOM element. And the first method that we are going to be using is append. Okay. So SVGs come with basic SVG elements that we can use. So for example, let's say it provides us with a line, it provides us with a rect, it provides us with a circle, and you can use this to help construct very simple SVGs if you like. And you can also add attributes such as a width, a height, and say maybe also a fill color. Okay, and we'll say it's blue. We're going to be doing this with D3. We're not going to hard code it into our JSX. So how we do that is with append. So we'll say SVG select SVG ref.current, and we'll append a rect. Now, how we do this is through method chaining. If you're familiar with jQuery, then you'll know what method chaining is. If not, then it's just a syntax where you just invoke methods just one right after the other. Okay, let's get rid of this console log. And so we append this rectangle. Another thing to note is that when you append an element, the selection switches from the SVG to the newly appended element, which is the rect. So whatever attributes that we give through this method chaining process will be applied to the rectangle instead of the SVG itself, the container SVG. So that's something you need to be aware of. So let's go ahead and add some attributes, and how we do that is with the attribute method, or ATTR. And it accepts two arguments, or accepts one argument, but we're going to give it two. Accepts the first argument being the name of the attribute, and the second argument being the value of the attribute. So let's say width, and we give it a value of 100, and another attribute of height, and we'll also give it 100, and we'll also give it a fill color of blue. So basically, we're literally just creating the same thing as this. It's just the same thing, right? But instead of doing it in the JSX, we are doing it in D3. So let's go ahead and delete this and run it. And congratulations, you have created an SVG using D3 and React. Okay. All right, so I also want to go over another selector called select all. Okay. And select all is basically, it still provides a selection object, but instead of a single element, it has the ability to select multiple elements. So for example, let's say I have in my SVG container a couple of rect elements. Okay. And we are going to select all rects. Another thing to note is that select and select all methods use W3C selector strings. Can use them. For example, if I have a class name of foo, then I can select that element by saying .foo, or if it's an ID, I can select it by saying #foo. Okay. But we're just here to select the rect, so let's go ahead and do that. Rect. Okay. And we are going to give it some attributes. I will just copy over the attributes here. So, and we'll just comment this out. And you're not going to be able to see it, but because they're stacked on top of one another. But if you hover over or if you inspect the DOM, you can see that we have 3 rectangles with the attributes that we have given it using D3. Now, what we can do if we want to see them spread apart is actually give them the attribute of x dot attr of x, and what the x attribute does is it will place the elements however far along the x-axis you want to with the given value, say 100. But we're not going to give it a value, we're going to give it a function. And what this function does is that it will run through each element inside the selection. And with functions like these, you have the first argument being the elements, which we don't really care about, so we're just going to give it an underscore. But it also gives us the index as a second argument, and we do care about that. And so we want, let's just say we want it spaced 100 units apart, so we'll go ahead and say y times 100. Okay. Oops. And boom, you have it looks like a really long rectangle, but it's actually 3 rectangles or 3 squares just adjacent to one another. Okay. So there you have it. Those are the 3 selections. In the next video, we'll be discussing data joins and how we can use data to modify the DOM elements. I'll see you there.